This is Daphne Frias. We literally met 3 minutes ago and I think we're BFFs.
Yes, absolutely.
You've got a big story for a 25-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell people a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, my name is Daphne. I'm sort of I do everything basically.
Yeah.
I am a organizer working on the intersections of the climate crisis and disability justice. I originally got my start in the gun violence prevention movement, working with March for Our Lives, the organization that was created shortly after the Parkland shooting in 2018, and I was the New York State director for that organization for about a year or so between 2019 and 2020. And I fell in love with organizing and the power of people and the power of our words, and it really helped me understand that we can accomplish anything if we lean on the power of community and love, and those are really the tenets that drive my organizing work. And right now I'm really working mostly in the climate space, protecting our home, protecting our earth, and helping to make sure that the communities I'm a part of as a Latina, as a disabled woman, and as a person of color, we get our voices to be heard within the climate movement. That's just sort of a little overview, but I'm sure we'll go into...
I mean, that is a lot for somebody
Yeah.
at only 25 years old. So I'm curious, what was it that prompted you to become so involved in the climate crisis?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always been obsessed with nature and our planet. Living in New York City, I was always grappling for whatever green space we could find. And I'm really lucky to live near Riverside Park, which is a beautiful park here in the city. Really being active, really connecting with our environment. And I think that just spurred in me a natural love for our planet, our home. And then it wasn't until I got older in high school where I realized I was experiencing environmental racism, and I just didn't have the language to explain what I was experiencing. I knew that where I lived there was way less access to fresh produce and healthy options at supermarkets, that I was living in a place that was very polluted by the water treatment plant that's only a couple of blocks away from my apartment. There's the major bus depot for the MTA that's down in Harlem. And, it wasn't until I went to a predominantly a white institution for high school.
Downtown, right?
Yeah, I went to Beacon, so actually not that far away from here. That I realized the lives of students who were going there were radically different than what I was experiencing and what I was living. Even the neighborhood of where our school is, there was maybe 5 supermarkets in a 2-block radius with produce that I had never seen before.
Wow.
And meat that actually looked like it was fresh and not brown and very dangerous to consume. And I remember going back home and having sort of an internal dialogue, wait, why is this happening? And I'm fiercely proud of where I live and my community, and I think we have so many special things to offer. And I remember one of the most immediate feelings I had was anger, because I was we got to be relegated to this neighborhood, but we have so much beauty to offer the world, and just because we don't fit the mold of what's seen as important in society, some system has deemed that we have less opportunities and less access to resources. And then I had the amazing privilege to be part of this program called the Lang Youth Medical Program, which is based out of New York Presbyterian Hospital.
Okay.
And it's a 6-year program for young folks in Washington Heights who want to get exposed to the medical field.
Wow.
So you enter when you're in 6th grade and you go all through the end of high school when you graduate. And every Saturday you go and you're on Columbia Med School's campus and you get taught by some of the med students and other students within their school system, and you basically go through like a mini medical school, which is super
Oh my
fun.
God, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. I saw my first surgery at I think it was like 12, 13. It was open heart surgery.
Stop. Did you faint?
No, I had the best time ever.
Oh my gosh. The thought of that, I'm like,
No, I was like, wow, this is the coolest thing I've ever
that's
seen.
amazing.
Through this program, I also learned about public health, and that absolutely and almost immediately changed my life. I realized that was the answer that I was missing to help me understand and contextualize the world. And sort of ever since then, I've fallen in love with public health and how really it is the answer to so many of our societal problems. I always say that the climate crisis is one of our biggest public health crises, if not the biggest public health crisis, because it contributes to everything of the way that we sort of have a relationship with our planet, the way that diseases are proliferating, the way that we sort of relate to each other. And I think understanding public health really helped me to understand that that was my lane within like advocacy and organizing.
That's amazing. That is so cool. Because I don't think a lot of people might necessarily see the direct connection between public health and climate crisis, but when you say that, it's like, of course this is one of the biggest things confronting us in terms of public health. There are some people in this world who don't believe that climate change is a thing.
Yeah.
Like, what would you say to somebody who held that belief?
I think, honestly, I don't blame those people because, unfortunately, the climate crisis has become a political topic.
Yes.
And I think that protecting our planet should inherently be apolitical. It is our one home, regardless of your socioeconomic status, your gender, your race, any identifiers that you may have. It doesn't matter. We all live on this one planet, right? But because it is so all-encompassing, people want to have their slice of the pie, right? And in order to do that, you have to make it a divisive issue. And unfortunately, climate solutions cost money. And money is always tied up in legislation, in politics. And it can be hard to know where to fall when there's so many different viewpoints being thrown at you. And when we're living in one of the most historic times for disinformation, it's really hard to know what's truly going on.
Yes.
And I think one of the worst things we can do is villainize someone who doesn't believe the same things that we believe.
Totally.
Because it puts up an immediate barrier, and one of the biggest ways that we can create change is by having a human connection. And I honestly, the way that I approach this with folks who are hesitant about the climate crisis is I try to bring real life examples to things that they already experience. The climate crisis doesn't have to be some existential thing that we don't see or can't touch. It is everyday real life impacts to our food, to our body, to our air, and to our homes. And I think that that is the misconception, and honestly why a lot of people don't believe in the climate crisis, because they think it's something that should like be right in front of their face, right?
Yeah.
Or something so existential. It's the whole world. How can possibly one person do something about this? And I think it's about sort of helping folks understand that they're already living within the climate crisis. The climate crisis isn't coming or hasn't gone. The climate crisis is right now.
And it was, a while ago too. Like, it's only getting worse.
Scientists have been ringing the alarm since the early 70s.
Wow.
And honestly, that makes me really scared because I'm a person who loves to ask questions. Maybe too many questions sometimes. And I always believed in our scientists. I always say that, like, to be a scientist is literally to fall in love with something and dedicate your whole life to it. We're just big nerds about stuff that we care about. And I was like, if someone could dedicate their whole life to one single thing forever, I would believe them in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
Because if you have that much passion for one subject, it must be so beautiful and amazing to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is something else that draws me into this movement, the science and knowing how many scientists have dedicated their lives to protecting our planet. And it really makes me sad that we're in this era of like having to even prove that the science exists.
Yeah.
Because truly, I think the science is the voice of our Earth. She's telling us in data, in numbers, in concrete visuals, in facts that something is wrong, and she's begging for us to listen.
I told some of my viewers, subscribers, whatever, that I was going to be talking to you. They asked, they were like, okay, so a lot of this can feel abstract. Obviously, there's a million and one things that we can all do, but what is one thing that people could actually do in their day to day that could benefit our Earth and, potentially?
I think it's about educating yourself about what actually the root causes of the climate crisis are. I think there's a lot of misconceptions that are out there. Like, one thing I tell people about is carbon footprint. Carbon footprint has become this like really popular thing over the last couple of years, where it's sort of this tool to track your environmental impact. But what a lot of people don't know is that the idea of carbon footprint was created by a think tank. And that think tank was funded by Shell.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, that's fascinating.
It was a distraction mechanism. If people felt like they had to take on the individual mantle of stopping the climate crisis, then it could never be Shell's fault.
Wow. That really just blew my mind.
Yeah.
So then I'm curious, because like you were saying before, there is so much disinformation, that what is a source that we can look to that helps us compile this information that we can truly trust?
I honestly try to tell everyone to first look at their local indigenous communities.
Okay.
Because here, our indigenous people are known as the Lenape individuals, the Lenape community, and they have sort of been the original climate protectors. They were climate activists before climate activists even existed, because they have always had regenerative and symbiotic relationships with the earth and natural resources. And honestly, I encourage folks to reach out to more frontline and marginalized activists, because we experience the climate crisis at a disproportionate level than others. And I think that that's something I've struggled with within the climate movement. A lot of the climate movement has faces of folks that don't disproportionately feel the impacts of the climate crisis. There's a lot of whitewashing that happens within this movement. And I even have conversations with friends like Greta, who she's like, yes, I am the poster child for this movement, but I never asked to have this mantle. And I never asked to have this platform. And one of the things she says often, she was like, why me? Like, it should be so many other people. And I think what I really love about her approach to this movement is she's like, okay, I'll be here, but you have to bring all these other 10 people along with me.
Can you give everybody a little background to that? So did you meet them originally in 2021?
Yes. COP26, which happened in Glasgow, Scotland, was coming, and Emma Watson wanted to put together a panel of young climate activists at the New York Times Climate Hub that was being, it was the inaugural year for that hub. So it was a panel of myself, Greta Thunberg, Malala Yousafzai, Dominic Palmer, Tori Choi, and Vanessa Nakate, Maya Rose Craig, and Vivi, who is an amazing Indigenous activist from Colombia. And we got coined after that as the Climate Justice League.
I am obsessed with that. It's so good.
I'm actually trying to make us like bomber jackets so that we can wear them. There's very few moments in this work where like I feel like, wow, my life just changed. And in that moment, after I got off the stage, I had to walk through a whole like crowd of press and people taking my photo. And I remember getting to the other side and getting in the elevator, and I just started crying.
Aww.
And I was like, wow,
such a special moment.
First of all, I thought about all the people who I was carrying with me in that room, and like just thinking about like my family and where they've come from. My grandparents immigrated from the Dominican Republic, escaping persecution. We had a very rough dictatorship there in the early 40s and 50s. So they came to America to escape that persecution. And I don't think they ever would have thought that someone from our family would be able to be on platforms like this. So I just like had this moment of being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
And then after that, we all ended up having a vegan pizza party. I think it's really important for me to share stories like that to help people understand that like we are also human and we also have fun and like we genuinely love and like each other.
Well, that's what I think is amazing is when I was watching that panel of everybody. First of all, you could tell that there was like a shared love with all of you guys, but also there's still so much hope in that room despite the fact that we're talking about something that is so terrible and like disastrous, you know?
Yeah.
So I have a question. When you go to sleep at night, do you carry more of a fear about what is to come, or do you carry more of a hope that there is a future for all of us on this planet?
Yeah. I think the fear that I carry is not so much about if the future is possible. It's more about why aren't more people caring?
Mm-hmm.
I do think that no matter what, we will save our planet. And I think I have to believe that in some like very fierce way, or otherwise I wouldn't be able to do this work. But I also think like the privilege of doing this work is also getting to be on the front lines and seeing it happen in real time. Hope is not this existential thing. Like I can, if like hope was like a Build-A-Bear, it would literally be right here. Like it would be something that I could hold and cherish and love because it's so tangible for us. And I think something that's also beautiful is that doing this work, I really considered myself a global citizen, where you know, it can be 3 a.m. and I'm having a conversation with like a friend in the Philippines and we're both climate activists and we're doing this work together. And that has really shown me like the beauty in humanity.
Thank you for doing this. Oh my gosh, this is going to be my favorite video.